All right, I've got 11:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. 11:30 for me here in St. Louis Central Time. I know we got people from all over the country joining. And welcome. We're so excited to be kicking off our second Best Practices Summit meeting for hospital development roles. And it is a pleasure to see you all. And I'm sure most of you know me, but if you don't, I'm Sean Jordan. I'm the president of the Research and Planning Group in St. Louis. And with me is Jenny Oliver, who is one of our OPO outreach consultants. And Jenny is someone who worked in the OPO world for many years and just as a fantastic resource for all kinds of information. Jenny, would you like to say anything?
Good morning or good afternoon. Sorry, I'm here in Cleveland. So thanks for joining us today. I know we're letting a few more people in the room, so I'm going to get started now. Do you want me to get started?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for joining us today. We had a wonderful list we got to look through this morning, so we're really excited. Um, so as Sean mentioned, my name is Jenny Oliver, and it was great to see so many familiar names and faces. And I know a lot of you through our Best Practices Summit. We're really gaining traction. So thank you, and thanks for telling your colleagues. And then Sean mentioned I also worked in the OPO industry and now do healthcare consulting. But we're working on bringing you topics that are relevant, that have impact, and that you either are involved in or your OPO has set as part of their strategic plan. So, with the advancement of technology, and we know that the increase in donors, the push to increase the donor pool, it's really critical to stay on top of these technologies. And one of them, whether your OPO is doing NRP, whether they are leaving it up to the transplant centers or they're bringing a third party expert like we're bringing you today, Keystone. It's critical to get it right, to enhance the donation experience, not only for the family, for your hospital partners, but also for the ICU staff and for your OPO. So that's why we're really happy today. And we're so grateful to have Shannon Barletti Mondi, who's the National Clinical Director of Organ Recovery at Keystone Perfusion Services, join us today and talk about it. So wherever you are in the process, she's going to have something relevant to tell you. You're going to learn something. You can take it back to your OPO, and we're really committed to talk to you about best practices. So I'm excited to learn today. We learned a lot even on these introductory calls with Shannon. So thanks for being here and being involved, and we hope that we'll see more of you.
Yeah.
Sean?
I am happy to see so many people here at the very end of Donate Life Month. And I know that Donate Life Month is not what it used to be, but I know that many folks that I've talked to have still been busy in the hospitals and doing things. And on top of working all the cases that many of you have been taking on in what I know has been a very busy month for many of the OPOs across the country. So we're so glad that you made time to be here today. And let me go ahead and just bring Shannon in here. So Shannon, you go ahead and unmute and let me just say that we are so privileged to have you here today. And um, we had talked last week a little bit about what could we really accomplish in this short amount of time, where we're going to talk about one of these big topics, which is NRP. And Shannon has been one of the people on the front lines of working with this process. She understands it really well. She is in the hospitals talking to people about it and working on cases. So she is very, very knowledgeable. And I thought one of the things we could really try to tackle today is to sort of demystify this whole idea of what it is and to kind of talk about it from your point of view, having done it, and then also to talk a little bit about what you're doing at Keystone Perfusion. So why don't we start with that? Tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do at Keystone Perfusion.
Sure, sure. So thank you so much, Sean, and thank you, Jenny. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. So I currently serve as the National Clinical Director for Keystone Perfusion's Organ Recovery Service line. I have a background in cardiac surgery ICU nursing, as well as being a cardiovascular perfusionist prior to becoming an administrator with Keystone. About 2 years ago now, Keystone started its journey in NRP. We were approached by our first OPO partner, and honestly, we were unfamiliar with NRP. It was very much in its infancy here in the US. So we went down that road together. Today, we partner with Keystone with over 12 OPOs across the country and over 25 transplant centers. So to date, we
Mm.
have completed over 1,500 NRP cases. So it's very exciting, and we're very happy to be able to share our experience here with you today.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to mention, by the way, I'm sure some of you will have questions, and if you do, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them in just a little bit. But why don't we just go ahead and dive into talking about NRP? So why don't you give me the 3-minute explanation of what NRP is, why we use it, why it's beneficial, why people here should care about it.
Sure, absolutely. So NRP is a post-mortem perfusion technology. It's used specifically in the DCD population. We use a modified cardiopulmonary bypass circuit. It is an open reservoir circuit, and we use cannulas and clamps to place into the donor, again, post-mortem, after a declaration of death has been made and an obligatory hands-off period has been maintained. We will make incision. We will place our cannulas. We will place clamps to isolate that NRP flow so that the flow is only going to the organs that we are intending to recover in each case. NRP is very, very exciting because we're really able to explore many more donation opportunities that we previously wouldn't be able to consider. We can significantly increase the number of organs available for transplant, as Jenny had mentioned. Some studies report by up to 30%, which is really significant. NRP allows these teams to evaluate organs in real time. Again, it is an in situ technique. In a traditional DCD, where after declaration of death and a hands-off period, we would make incision and we would rapidly move to cold flush. Instead, in NRP with DCD, we're able to go on circuit, reperfuse, and the recovery teams are able to look at those organs. They're able to get biopsies. They're able to run maybe pulmonary vein gases. And it really allows folks to be able to look at those organs before making the decision to go ahead and accept. I think it's really important to note that NRP benefits all organs in which the NRP circuit is flowing to, right? And it can be used in conjunction with machine perfusion technology. So it's a really, really exciting tool to have in our toolbox to be able to increase the organs that are available for transplant.
And when I hear, that up to 30% of organs can be additionally useful in cases where they might not have been, I mean, that just blows me away because it's such a cool and breathtaking technology in terms of what it can provide in terms of making sure that those gifts from those donors are making it to the intended recipients. And I know that when I hear about NRP, I get a little confused sometimes because there are two different types, right? So there's the TA NRP and then the A NRP. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Sure, sure. So in the very basic sense, we have two different types of NRP, TA NRP and abdominal NRP. And then even further from there, there are many, many different subtypes, and that is certainly ever evolving. But very, very basic sense, as we talked about before, we're placing those cannulas and also those clamps to determine where the NRP flow is going inside the donor body. In abdominal NRP, we're placing our cannulas and our clamps in such a way that the flow is isolated to the abdominal cavity only. So that NRP circuit flow is going to be going to the liver, the pancreas, and the kidneys. So that's your abdominal NRP. And again, many, many different subtypes within there when we're talking about abdominal NRP. TA NRP stands for thoracoabdominal NRP. And in that type of NRP, we are placing our cannulas and our clamps so that we are perfusing the thoracic and the abdominal organs. So in TA NRP, we're reperfusing the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, and the pancreas. Believe it or not, we have successfully transplanted NRP pancreas, which is really, really exciting. It's important to know that in all types of NRP, TA and abdominal, there are very, very strict and even redundant measures that are taken to ensure that that NRP circuit flow is isolated only to the organs that we intend to recover. We are making sure that our NRP circuit flow never enters the cerebral vasculature. ensuring that we are not reperfusing the brain after that declaration of death, so that we're ensuring that we are maintaining the conditions that were made upon that declaration of death.
Well, yeah, that's so fascinating. And I appreciate you giving a rundown on this because it can be a little confusing with all the different terminology and the way that you're doing things. But, one of the things that I also struggle with is I understand DCD cases, and I'm not a clinical person. I'm a researcher. I do surveys and things like that, but I understand DCD. How does an NRP case look different from a traditional DCD case? Because I know that there are some key differences in those.
Sure. So again, NRP used in the DCD population, and this can be different all across the country, depending on the specific OPO policy, the donor hospital policy, and also taking into consideration the family's wishes as well. Sometimes in these cases, withdrawal of care occurs in the ICU. Other times it occurs in a PACU. Other times we are able to bring the patient before they become a donor into the operating room. Sometimes, depending on policy, we're able to prep and drape prior to withdrawal. And some of our amazing OPO partners have done a truly beautiful job in including the family in this process. They have special prepping and draping techniques in which they are able to really allow the donor to spend their last moments with their loved ones, even inside of an operating suite. And to me, as a clinician, being at the bedside as a nurse taking care of these patients, and then being a perfusionist in the OR, to be able to see those two worlds meet in such a beautiful way, for me is really just incredible. Um, with regard to the operation itself, the difference between DCD and NRP, it's really that declaration of death and that hands-off period where things really change. In a traditional DCD, we withdraw care after the declaration and a hands-off period. We make incision, we place our cannulas, we place a cross clamp, and we immediately move to cold flush. In a DCD with NRP, similar in that we give heparin, we withdraw care, there's a declaration of death, and then there's a hands-off period. Again, we make incision. We do place our cannulas and our clamps again to isolate that circuit flow, and then we go on NRP. And then everything sort of slows down in the room, and we're able to safely reperfuse those organs and able to evaluate them in real time. So that there really becomes the difference in the DCD without NRP and with NRP. I'd be remiss not to mention that the withdrawal period also becomes important when you're looking at that. In a traditional DCD, when we withdraw, that timer starts right away. In NRP, we're able to look at that time from withdrawal of life-sustaining therapy a little bit differently. We're able to consider different functional or ischemic time parameters depending on which organ. We're able to look at is the blood pressure sustained at an acceptable level for each organ for a significant period of time. That wait time after withdrawal of care can be significantly increased in DCD with NRP as opposed to traditional DCD. And that's important to know.
And I know one of the things we talked about when you and I spoke last week was that that calm that can kind of come in after you get through those initial very tense moments of getting the process started. Then there's a lot, kind of an extension of time, and it brings a calm that maybe you might not see in a DCD case, which I just think is fascinating. Well, NRP was pretty rare until the last year or two, and now it's to the point where you're doing multiple cases a day around the country. So, what do you do to ensure the process is working smoothly when you have that many cases running?
Yeah. So just last week, we had a day where we did 15 cases simultaneously across the country. Yeah. So we're pretty proud of that and very, very proud of all of the work that is being done by all of our partners and all of the transplant centers across the country. I think that the keys to making this so successful is really in preparation, collaboration, and most importantly, communication. In the way that we're very similar to the aviation industry, right? In the way that you describe that takeoff and that landing, right? There's that very busy period, and then there's the calm period of the flight, and then we prepare for that landing, that cross clamp at the end. In a similar fashion, checklists are so very, very important. In the perfusion world for traditional cardiac surgery, checklists are paramount, and they truly are in NRP as well. We have pre-departure checklists that we use, and we communicate with our OPO and transplant center partners. We have intra-op checklists for our equipment. We have pre-procedure initiation checklists, and then again, before coming off to clamp. One thing that I think is really important, depending on the setup, and again, each OPO and transplant center is going to be very different in what makes them successful. I think really knowing the key stakeholders and knowing those donor hospitals and knowing your partners is really what's going to help make it successful. Some of our partners do an obligatory pre-conference Zoom call that is a condition of acceptance, where we have key stakeholders from every transplant center that will be involved, as well as the OPO and the NRP team members that will be in the OR. In those calls, we have them, again, there's a checklist for those too, and we have them streamlined to where we can discuss the entire case in about 10 minutes. We're able to identify friction points that may occur and prevent them before arriving on site to the donor hospital. Again, once we get on site, we have a pre-case huddle. We get to every OR about 90 minutes to 2 hours early. Now, it only takes my teams about 10 to 15 minutes to set up, but we get there early to make sure that we're able to really have that on-site huddle with all of the team members, all of the hospital staff members who will be assigned to the case. We're able to really walk them through the steps of what to expect in this case so that they feel really prepared and they're a lot more comfortable. We found that by getting there earlier, we're able to change the entire, I don't want to say mood, but the energy in the OR just by spending a few minutes with each of the donor hospital staff members to ensure that they understand what's about to come and make sure that they're comfortable and answer any questions that they may have.
Wow. This has just been so helpful and valuable. And I know one of the things that I wanted to kind of close on in our Q&A here before we turn things over to the folks in the audience to ask questions is we've got a lot of people here who are working with doctors and nurses every day. You know, they're in hospital development roles, or some of them are in clinical roles, and they might run into questions or concerns about NRP. And I know a lot of what you just outlined will help to kind of alleviate that. But what other things would you recommend in terms of how you're working with OPOs and hospitals to provide information and resources about NRP?
Sure. So with our OPO partners, no one knows their donor hospitals and those teams better than our OPO partners. So we let them lead that charge in terms of what type of education is needed, and we're happy to support in any way that we can. A lot of our partners will arrange for different meetings with different key stakeholders, whether it's nursing, anesthesia, the different transplant groups. Sometimes they like to have education session for OR nursing staff. A lot of times these cases occur, as you all know, on off hours, right? In the evenings, overnight, on the weekends. So sometimes it's a little difficult to kind of target the staff members who will be present in those cases. So again, that's how we've really found that just getting there early and doing education almost every single case has really helped with this. We do a lot of engagement with outreach. And then when we partner with an OPO, we spend a lot of time educating the OPO staff members. We educate the AOCs, quality department, family service members, on-site staff members. Everybody involved in this process from start to finish should have some sort of working knowledge of NRP and what it is so that they can determine how it fits in with their role. And then, of course, be available as a resource to ask any questions about the process to make sure that they truly understand.
Fantastic. And I think the key in introducing a new process in anything that you do, let alone something as important as donation, is making the strange familiar. So helping people to really be able to understand what they're about to go through so that when they're encountering things, they're not just caught off guard and they don't get a defensive point of view, but they really can go, oh, this is what I was supposed to expect and I can be ready for that. So I love hearing that you guys are providing that kind of education up front and engaging as many folks as possible, because I think it's crucial to the success of what you do. And I'm sure you guys have found that as well at Keystone. Well, we've got a question from the audience here, it is, who are the key people you have on the Zoom call prior to arrival at the hospital? Is it OR staff, the circulator, or pronouncing physician?
Sure, that's a fantastic question. So we don't really find that those OR staff members are present on the Zoom calls because oftentimes they're not assigned yet. These donor hospitals, they're very, very busy across the country, and trying to get staff members to commit to that ahead of time can be a little difficult. So in this pre-conference Zoom call, the key stakeholders that we have there are the accepting surgeons from each of the different transplant teams. If there's a heart team, a lung team, a liver team, sometimes we'll have those coordinators on there as well, or a representative who's able to speak in terms of, hey, what's important to you for your organ? Like I said, NRP benefits all organs, and these Zoom calls ahead of time are really about aligning and making sure that our plan for the NRP process is really going to maximize the gift of this donor. We also have the OPO staff. We'll have an administrator on call, the coordinator who will be on site, all of the team members that are participating in the NRP team. So the perfusionists, the preservationists. We'll also have the preservationists from the OPO or any transplant teams on there. If we are going to be going to a NMP device after NRP, such as Organox or Transmedics for the liver, we also invite those recovery surgeons to be on the call as well. We do a lot of cases where we do what's called either a super rapid recovery or more recently termed direct procurement of the thoracic organs and then go on to NRP in some donor hospitals or OPO DSAs in which TA NRP is not allowed. It's very important, especially in those cases, to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what is our surgical and then NRP plan to make sure that we're really able to get the most benefit for all organs to ensure complete success.
And by the way, folks, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be happy to ask them. While we're waiting for another one, question that I had, just based on some of the things that you said was, I know sometimes there's concern when the donor families are going to be going through a process like DCD or NRP that they may be concerned or that they may have misinformation about the process. And it sounds like you've had some experience with OPOs that have done a fantastic job of just making this a great experience for them. Do you have any recommendations for, I know we might not have a lot of family services people here, but in case we have any, for how OPOs can kind of prep and make donor families aware of what they're about to go through?
Sure, sure. And that for us, we have found the greatest success. And again, just to explain, the surgical team is always kept completely separate from the primary team taking care of the patient. So in over 1,500 cases, I myself and none of my team members have ever seen a family member. It's important to note that even when we're coming into the ORs to prep and drape ahead of time, we are completely removed from that OR and do not re-enter until after the declaration of death and the hands-off period. Uh, I am also very much aware of my limitations. Even with my background as a nurse, I've never been on the transplant side of things from an OPO perspective or a family services perspective. So what I like to think of is us combining our superpowers, if you will. So we sit down with the family services teams from our OPOs and we explain to them, hey, this is NRP. This is what a case looks like. We set up what we call a dry run simulation. We will have a mannequin. We will bring all of our equipment and our disposables into the OR. We will work with the OPO team and show them exactly what happens during these types of cases. And then we find that they are able to ask the pertinent questions for their roles to be able to truly understand how they can best help these donors and their families. And we've had some really amazing conversations that have resulted from that.
Well, this has been just such a fantastic opportunity to learn about NRP and what you do, Shannon. I guess since I don't see any other questions in the chat, I'll close with one final question, and that is, I've heard you reference several times how important it is that you're maximizing the gift of the donor. And what you guys are doing is really central to the mission that the OPOs are on as well, which is to try to benefit lives through transplantation and donation. As we look at NRP going forward, is this going to be a process that's pretty much going to be as common as anything else that OPOs are doing down the road? Is it going to be exotic for a while, or where do you really see the role of this in the future in terms of just maximizing that gift?
That's a fantastic question. And if you had asked me, like I said, we're coming up pretty close, a month to the day in starting our NRP journey 2 years ago. If you had told me where we would be today, I probably would have fallen out of my chair. So to try to predict where we will be in the next 2 years, I can't even fathom. But what I can say is in that all of the conversations that I have from Maine all the way down to Southern California, it seems that these same sentiments echo, is that the benefits of NRP are really undeniable. And it seems that a lot of the goal of a lot of our partners is to have NRP be the gold standard for DCD. I often hear that the goal is to to pursue NRP on every single DCD donation. So if I had to guess, I would think that that's where we're headed in the future.
Well, fantastic. Well, we are so appreciative to you for being here today and taking time to share. I know that you are very busy and you've had a lot going on, but this has been really, really valuable. So thank you so much for being here. And we will let you go because I know you have other things to get onto. But I do want to mention for anybody that would like to get in touch with Shannon, I'll put this back up. And we'll send this out to everybody as well after we're done. But here is her information right here, and you can email her anytime. And she's got way more information that she can share with you if you have particular questions about NRP or anything else that you'd like to know. And we'll put her email in the chat as well. So thanks so much, Shannon, for being here, and we really appreciate you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to now move into our breakout sessions in just a moment here. But I wanted to kind of mention a couple of things before we do that. So first of all, Jenny and I were talking earlier today about Donate Life Month. And Jenny, you told me a kind of interesting story. Did you want to share that?
Sure. Just, we were out with another OPO we were working with, and we heard some feedback from folks that, it's a whole month. It was started over 20 years ago. Maybe it's time to, make it a week. I know everybody on this call probably had activities of some sort. And then I think it's really important to evaluate, are those activities for the sake of activities, or are they adding value and actually thanking your hospital partners? Are you putting more on them? We saw some things on social media with some coloring things people had to do. Again, it's that's a nice idea, but is that one more thing the hospital has to do? Or is it adding value? I think those are really great questions to ask. We know the environment in healthcare, as I talked about, it's getting more challenging. Everybody knows it. If you read Becker's, you read anything online, and you're out there and you talk to them. So I think making them relevant, impactful, and saying thank you. I think that is the biggest thing, because what we're hearing in our surveys and our summits and engaging with these speakers from the healthcare staff is in the hospitals, it's more and more. And the OPOs say, well, we know we're asking them to do more and more. Okay, so what are we doing to make it more seamless? So we're looking at exploring those, and we're having conversations with some of you, with your leadership, and we're going to go from there, because these are the conversations we've got to have to improve the donation experience nationwide.
Yeah, and those that have heard me speak probably know I've been a Scoutmaster and a Cub Master in the Scouting America organization, formerly known as the Boy Scouts, and I'm constantly having to tell these young kids, like, thank you is such an important thing. And just telling people thank you, you can never say it often enough or loudly enough. I tell them that all the time. They're tired of me saying it, but I mean it, because there are so many people in this world that are just waiting to be thanked. And I have been in positions where, and I'm not doing what you guys are doing. I'm a survey researcher, but sometimes you talk to people who are volunteering their time or who are helping out with things, and you say thank you to them and they almost cry because they don't hear it very often. It is a very thankless world that we live in. And so taking the time to just let people know why they are important or what they're doing to help with your mission and your goals makes a huge difference. And I can tell you, we're fielding studies for OPOs right now where we are seeing it in the data that when you say thank you, it sticks with them and they remember it and they cherish it. They talk about it being why they feel valued by the OPO that they worked with. And this kind of leads me to just a kind of a note for today, and that is that we're all in this together. We're all going through a tough time right now. And I don't know about you guys, but it has been a tough year for me. It has been a tough in many ways, both, in terms of just we've had a downturn in business at RPG. I've had a lot of personal things that have been taking my time and attention. There's just kind of this climate of fear right now where a lot of people are worried. And I know people that have lost their jobs. I know people that are struggling. It is a hard time. And in the hospitals, it is a hard time because your hospital partners are being asked to do more than they've ever been asked to do before by their employer. And then for you all to have all this donation activity that's going on to come in on top of that is asking a lot of them. So it is really, really important that we get together like we're getting together today and we share not just in knowing that we all are in this together, but also sharing what we know, because that's what helps us to succeed. And, one of the best ideas that the OPO community ever had was the collaborative that came up a couple decades ago. And I know, Jenny, you were part of the collaborative. I know many other people that are on this call may have been a part of it or have heard about it. But we are so committed to keeping the spirit of that collaborative going, because I can tell you, as somebody who is reading the data and looking at how you can serve folks better, collaboration is key. And it is key both with your partners in the hospitals, and it is key among each other. And that's why we're going to do these breakouts here in just a moment to let you share and to talk about some of the things that are bugging you right now and that you can do something about. But I just want to remind you as well, like we're really privileged at RPG to be able to be a partner to you all. We do things like this summit because we want to give back to this community that we feel so strongly about and we feel so privileged to be a part of. A few things that we can always do to help you. We can come in and do training with your team using knowledge from our research and experience. We just recently did this with one OPO where we came in and I talked about customer service. And this is something that I talked about back in November at our in-person Best Practices Summit. But I talked about how companies like Costco or Apple or Chick-fil-A or USAA or Amazon apply customer service to make people fanatically loyal to their brands. And you might not think right off the bat that that's something that's really useful in how you're working with people in the hospitals, but I promise you it is, because it's a people business. Anytime you are working with people, you want them to be aligned with who you are and what you do, and knowing how to serve them right can help with that. And so we have training and things that we can offer to help you with that. And if your team needs something like that, they need a booster shot of some good soft skills or customer service, we can help with that. But if you have a problem hospital, I've been hearing stories around the country about hospitals that are getting outright hostile towards OPOs, and that concerns me a lot. It concerns me because I don't want to see you all struggling to fulfill your mission because a hospital has turned and soured on what you're doing. And a lot of times it's because of misunderstandings or misinformation or just something that's happened in the culture of that hospital that needs to be turned around. And so, we do a bigger study, and that's something that we do. But if you have a problem hospital and you're really struggling with it, talk to us, because we could go in and we could interview 5 or 10 people for a very low cost and help you to figure out what the real issues are. They'll talk to us because we're a third-party organization. We can kind of be an intermediary, but we can help you with that information and figure out what the real pathway to solving those problems might be. And so keep that in mind. The other thing is, we do have this bigger study we do. We call it the Hospital Partner Study, and it usually involves interviewing well over 100 people to talk about what you can do in your DSA to serve your hospital partners better. And we've done that study with many of the folks that are on this call. I'm sure many of you have had me come to your OPO and heard me present about this study. But if your OPO hasn't done this in a while, talk to us about it, because this is a really good time to start collecting feedback about how you can serve these partners better, because they are stressed. They are really feeling it right now. And if you didn't see it during April when you were in the hospitals working with them, I promise you, if you start to look, you will notice just how much is being put on their shoulders and how much they just really, really want to be validated. And the thing that we keep hearing over and over is they love the mission of donation. They love the idea of what you're doing, but when too much gets put on their shoulders and they feel like they're not able to take care of their patients the way that they want to, then donation becomes a burden and it becomes a chore, and it becomes even something that they can become hostile towards. And you definitely don't want to see that. So looking for ways to both be reactive to situations as they're occurring, but then proactive about how to keep things from being a problem down the road is what that study can really help to identify. So with all that said, it's time for us to go into our breakout groups, and I'm going to set these up here in just a second. But What we're going to do in these breakout groups today is Jenny has this term that she uses, and I know it's something I've heard at other OPOs as well, about what's the pebble in your shoe? What is the thing that makes it a little bit harder to walk around in the hospitals or to be a part of those environments where you can, you know that you got to go and you got to do the job of engaging with people, but there's something that just bugging you while you're doing it. So when you're in your breakout groups, I want you to introduce yourself, your OPO, your role, and then talk about what that pebble in your shoe might be. And if you run out of that to talk about, the next thing you can talk about is any success stories or any advice that you would offer. And Team RPG will be in some of these rooms because we're gonna record and take notes just so we can get back to you guys with some feedback about what we heard in the breakouts. We'll send all of that out tomorrow along with the video and along with any follow-up details from this. But we're so grateful to all of you who have been on and those of you who can stay and be a part of the breakouts. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll be moving you into the rooms here in just a second, so bear with me.